welcome back. I bet for a minute there you thought, hello, here's Bob the Builder. You'd be wrong, particularly if you could see my achievements at do-it-yourself. I'm afraid I'm not very good at it, as my trips to hospital would testify. When I fell off the ladder, or when I nearly cut my hand off with an angle grinder. Well, in Jesus' day, people would have had to work like that, and many of them would have had to build their own house. I wonder if either of the two men who chose to build their houses had ever built one before. They may have done, and they may have helped. They certainly would have seen other people do it. But these two men ended up building two very different houses in very different ways. I wonder why they decided on the foundations that they eventually chose. One choosing rock and the other one sand. I wonder why they made the decisions they did. Let's pause for a moment and think about that.
Well, now, it's not likely that we're going to be building houses ourselves now, but we do make decisions every day. Some of them are really quite small, like, what shall I have for breakfast? Or, what shall I look at on television this evening? Or maybe, who shall I invite to my next party? But then there are bigger decisions as well, which need a good bit more thought. Like, how do I handle it if my best friend suddenly cuts me out? Or should I take sides if there's a quarrel going on in the class? What should I do if I get caught telling a lie, or maybe cheating? If I'm honest, a lot of things are going to influence the way I make decisions. A lot of things and a lot of people. Sometimes I end up making the right decision. But unfortunately, and sadly, sometimes I get it wrong. Now, I think it would be a good idea if we took a little time to think about this. Who and what influence the decisions that we make and decide what to do next? For example, why do we choose to make friends with some people but not with others? Let me tell you about some personal decisions that I've made during my life. They may help you think about your own decisions. If I go back a long way, back to when I was about 10 or 11 years old, getting towards the end of my primary school years and thinking about which school to go to next. I lived in London then, and there was quite a choice, wide range. So where should I go? Now, the teachers had an idea. They thought that this particular school would be good for me because of how I've been doing in my present school. My parents thought something different. They thought a school that was not very far away, but easier to get to. And then there was all my schoolmates. They pretty well all decided they wanted to go to a third school. And of course, they had more influence on me than anyone else, so that's the one I went to eventually. But for quite a while, I was torn in three as to which way I would go, and I really don't know to this day whether I made the right choice. But I had to make a choice. Then a few years later, I was in the Boy Scouts. Enjoyed it. Camping, trekking, doing all sorts of exciting things. And then gradually I got less and less interested, got a bit bored, and decided that there were other things I would rather do. Problem was, the scout master, the scout leader, was my own older cousin. So that left me with a problem of how do I tell him? How do I put it without upsetting him or embarrassing my whole family? So I delayed the decision for quite a while, wrestled with it, and eventually I decided that it was the right thing to do was to leave. So I braved it out, told him what I was doing, and he was all right about it. So that was okay. And about 10 years later, I was married with a baby and living in a house down in Kent, the other side of London. The problem was I wasn't really earning enough money. I was working in London. That's a long journey to work and back each day. And we couldn't afford to live, really. So my wife and I got down to it and made a decision. We asked other people. I talked to some people at work about it. We talked to our relatives about it. We got the maps out and we searched for a job and a place to live. And the end of the long story is that I got a job in Leicester and we moved to a house in Corn. That was a long, long time ago. And one of the biggest decisions that I ever had to make. Well, there. Now, with your teachers, I want you to think and talk about who and what influences the kind of decisions that you have to make. That's your next task.
It's interesting that at the start of the story, Jesus talks about the man who builds a house on the rock as being someone who listens to his words and puts them into practice. In other words, the man is influenced by what Jesus says. Although Jesus did actually say it, we know the story means that the man who built the house on the sand also heard Jesus' word, but chose to ignore it. There are many different things that can influence the choices we have to make, and the decisions and the things we choose to do in our lives. And we need to think very carefully about being wise. It would be good just to take a moment to think. We have choices that we have to make. Who are the best people to listen to? What is the right and good thing to do? We need to be wise in deciding about what we are going to do, and also in what we're not going to do. Well, I wonder how you answered those questions. Christians believe that the way Jesus lived his life and the things the Bible says about choices and decisions help us to live the way that God wanted us to, loving ourselves and our neighbours. The reasons why Christians believe that listening to God and Jesus is the best thing for us is because they also believe that God created us and loves us and therefore wants the best for us. So, we're going to finish with the picture of the lighted candle. You can use this time to think about who you listen to help you make the right decisions and choices, and why you would choose to listen to them. And we look forward to sharing more of the story with you next time.